Hey friends, how's it going? Ash here, welcome back to Gents. Hope that you're doing well. On this channel, I will sometimes make videos that is geared toward beginners. People that are just trying to figure stuff out, trying to figure out what they like, because it can be really confusing when you start trying to learn about fragrances. There's so much out there, so many releases. You got dozens of new fragrances coming out every year, so many different brands, niche, indie, designer, expensive, cheap, discounters, retail. It gets confusing. And one thing that beginners will often do is they'll look for hyped fragrances. Fragrances that have been really talked up for one reason or another, because they think, well, it's been hyped, so it's probably really good. I'll buy it. I'll blind buy it. Whoa, dangerous. But not all hyped fragrances are safe blind buys. And today I'm gonna be sharing with you 15 different fragrances that have been heavily hyped at one point or another that are not safe for beginners. Each one of these fragrances I'll have linked in the description, so feel free to check them out down there. Let's jump into it. And this is no particular order, so the first one I mentioned isn't the easiest of the bunch or anything like that. I want to kick things off with a fragrance that I think is really obvious for this list, CR Noir from Lalique. Now this has been hyped for years and years for a bunch of reasons, and really they're good reasons. It's cheap as long as you buy it from discounters, so it's not going to cost you very much to pick up, and that's always nice. The quality is also very high for the price point, so that's a win-win. Doesn't cost much, and the quality is way higher than you would expect for that price point. Nice. So what's the drawback here? Well, it's a dark, woody fragrance. It's decently heavy on the vetiver, has kind of a rootiness to it, the way that woodiness comes across. And for a lot of people, it's gonna be difficult to wear. Now, I myself actually think it's not that difficult to wear. I think it smells amazing for that price point, just absolutely knockout. But I'm also not a beginner just getting into things. I've been collecting for a couple decades. I have thousands of fragrances. It's a bit much. So somebody who's just getting into it, this is probably like going from 0 to 100, where you smell it and you're just like, my God, I can never wear this. So while this has been hyped heavily over the years, and I think it actually completely deserves the hype, if you're a brand new beginner, this is probably gonna be a bridge too far. Before we go to the next one, I wanna give you guys some codes in case you shop at any of these websites. Use these codes, save yourself some money. GS25 from Fragflex is the newest. Buy one, get one, 25% off, and that scales up. So the more bottles you buy, the more you get at 25% off. And Fragflex is ran by the same people that run fragrancebuy.ca. Now this next one, a bunch of you may think, nah man, that's pretty safe, but I'll explain why. Baccarat Rouge 540 from Maison Francis Kurkdjian. Now this is extremely expensive compared to your average designer fragrance out there. So for a lot of people, this is gonna be a massive splurge of a purchase. And if you're just getting started, especially if you have never smelled this, it is not what I would consider a safe blind buy. Now, I think the fragrance itself is pretty easy to wrap your head around. It's sweet, it's got an easy wearing nature to it, so it's not the type of thing you smell and you go, oh God, it's not like CR Noir where you might recoil the first time you smell it. So the reason I put this here is because for a lot of people, it's gonna be a disappointment. So Baccarat Rouge 540 is one of the best-selling niche fragrances in the world. It is extremely popular, but for a bunch of people, I have read this over and over and over and over the years, they have been, again, disappointed. So this is gonna be one of those ones where I think it's extremely important, if you are a beginner, to sample this first and be dead set that you wanna buy it before you pick it up. And there are so many alternatives to Baccarat Rouge 540 at this point that are extremely affordable, that if you're just getting started into fragrances, that's probably gonna be a better move than just outright buying this one for $200, $300, $400. There are fragrance clones on the market today of this that get you very close for like 15, 20 bucks. So for all those reasons, I think if you're a beginner, you probably should stay away from this one. Although if you love it, you've sampled it, you've tried it, and you're dead set, you like it, at that point, go for it. This next one hurts my soul, but I gotta put it here. Dior Homme Intense from Christian Dior. Now this is one of my favorite fragrances ever. We're talking designer, niche, indie, it doesn't matter. Cheap, expensive, average priced. This is one of my favorites, period, hard stop. I love this fragrance. I just almost bit my tongue off. English is my first language, but I struggle with it.
English is not his first language.
So the iris in here I think is just top notch. Chef's kiss, perfecto. Creaminess, the sweetness, the elegance, the sophistication that this has. I got like 4 bottles of this stuff. So, I mean, I'm pretty well set, but yeah, I like it a lot. And it has been hyped to death over the years because of people like me, I guess. Sorry about that. But yeah, seriously, people that are into fragrances, yeah, they've talked this one up. So why avoid this one if you're a beginner? Well, for a bunch of people just getting into fragrances, this style of iris scent is not an immediate love. This is kind of one of those types of scent profiles that has to grow on you, kind of an acquired taste for a lot of people. So that's why it's just one of those ones that for a lot of people just getting into stuff, getting into fragrances, this is not gonna be something that you probably go for. And it is more of a fragrance that you would use in very specific situations. Spice Bomb up next from Victor and Rolf. Yeah, I know. Spice Bomb, what? It's like a classic, you know, it's a modern classic. Well, to be fair, so is that one. So what's the deal with Spice Bomb? Well, it's the opening for a lot of people, actually. It's strong, it's potent, it's got really good performance. And you know, for a lot of people, that's all that matters. You know, some people are just like, well, I just want a fragrance that lasts 12 hours. Everything else is secondary. So it does give you that. But it's just such a potent blast of spice off the top that for a lot of people, it's gonna be a little off-putting. You know, gonna be looking for something a little easier going, a little easier to wear. And it's one that, just that kind of built-in aggressiveness that it has, for some people is gonna be a little hard for them to pull that off. Though I will say, of the ones we've talked about so far, I think that this one and this one are the easier ones, and I think this one and this one are actually easier than the majority of things that we're gonna talk about here today. You may think Spice Bomb Extreme would be the one to be put into this list because, I mean, it's got extreme in the name, but I actually find Spice Bomb Extreme a little bit easier to wear for more people, a little smoother, and the sweetness in there from the vanilla that's pumped up a bit makes that one just a little bit of an easier reach overall. Okay, Terre d'Hermès up next. So why Terre d'Hermès? Another classic, a real masterpiece, honestly. A lot of people would say this is a 10 out of 10 fragrance. It has this great usability to it. It's very functional in just about any situation you're gonna find yourself in. It's a good one to the office, to business situations, more formal situations, classier situations, but then you can pull it off in casual situations just as well. This one, kind of like Encre Noir down there, it's got vetiver and a decent amount of it, but this one also has kind of a dirty earthiness to it, a flintiness, so like a minerality, a flinty minerality to it. And for some people, they just cannot wear this. This is one of those fragrances that is not fully love it or hate it, but it does very strongly have some people in the hate it camp and the love it camp as well. So there's a lot of people in the middle who think it's just, you know, a really nice fragrance, very wearable, like I said, but it has some staunch supporters and detractors, more so than probably most anything we're gonna talk about today. Oh, look at that, Bentley for Men Intense. This one I lump just about always with Encre Noir because this is pretty much like Encre Noir in the sense that it's cheap from discounters and the quality is very high. So everything I talked about with Encre Noir, as far as like the, oh man, the quality, the price, so good, hype, hype, hype. Yes, same thing here. So this one is woody, leathery, boozy, rich, bold, actually smells like or similar to a couple of niche fragrances out there. So the one that smells most similar to is Idole de Luban. And that is a fragrance that I own and it smells awesome. I love that one. And this is probably your best bet to get close to that on a budget. That being said, this is that type of scent profile that a lot of beginners are not going to like. It's just not gonna jive with them, it's not gonna work well, and so that's why it's on the list. Up next, Wanted by Night from Azzaro. Yes, once again, another one that I really, really like. At one point in time, at discounters, you could find this for under 30 bucks. And I found this at times for right around 20. like $22 or something like that. And you can still find this at discounters at Joma's shop as of when I'm filming this video, 80 bucks. So, yay. It's one of those deals where the writing could be on the wall with this one, but I don't want to jinx it, so we'll just leave it at that. And this one I find to be really unique. And again, when it was going for that lower price point, I think it was worth the potential disappointment to pick it up because, in my opinion, at that price, that lower price, it was just a home run. Nice fruity sweetness to it, little smokiness, vanilla, tobacco, good amount of spice there right off the top, and like I said, pretty unique scent profile. Problem is, with the price it goes for now, that elevated price compared to what it used to be, it has too much of a risk for people who are just getting started because it is, again, a little bit unique. And blind buying it, probably not a great idea for a lot of people out there. That being said, it gets my seal of approval. I love this stuff. Vetiver again. This time it's just called Vetiver, and this is Guerlain Vetiver. Now, to an extent, kind of the same thing going on with this as Wanted by Night. Guerlain Vetiver, which I have, I think like 4 different bottling styles of this fragrance because they've run through a bunch of different bottling types as this fragrance has aged, but I'm a fan, you could say. This one used to be really cheap. From discounters, you could find this one for like, yeah, 25, 30 bucks, something like that. And it's another one where the price has gone up, unfortunately, as time has gone on. Citrus, vetiver, tobacco, bunch of notes. Actually, bunch of notes in this one. A nice, classically masculine feel to it. It just smells so gentlemanly, sophisticated, grown up, and to me, doesn't smell dated. You know, it doesn't come across like something your grandpa would wear, for example. Shout out to all grandpas. And this one also is ultimately a vetiver fragrance, and for a lot of newbies, vetiver is a note that can be a little intimidating. I think it's great. Toy Boy, after that, from Moschino. So this one, quite a different fragrance, quite different. You know, it's doing its own thing. It's unique, once again. Actually, a lot of these, very unique, which is sometimes why it's hard for new people to appreciate them. But this is a floral forward fragrance for men. Magnolia, actually one of the more prominent notes here, which I basically never see in men's fragrances. Very clean, sweet, really unisex. Women could easily pull this off as well. And when it came out, it got a good amount of hype because it is so different. It's a bit of a breath of fresh air compared to everything else coming out, or when this was released, everything else that was coming out. But this is the type of fragrance that I think a lot of guys would smell and just, you know, say no thank you, because it does have that feminine touch to it. You know, it's got a very unisex quality to it. So if you're looking for a more classically masculine fragrance or something, it probably won't work for you. Back to niche, Interlude from Amouage, the original Interlude, man. There are a couple flankers of this nowadays. I think that the least safe of the Interlude fragrances is actually the original one. So this is a scent that has always been held in high acclaim, high esteem by the fragrance world at large. And it was called the Blue Beast for a really long time because it's very strong. And for me, when I smell the opening here, it's awesome. It's like this mixture of nostalgia for me and then also just appreciation. It is rich and bold and unapologetic. It has a good dose of incense in there, resins, oregano off the top. And that oregano actually is one of the main things that can really turn some people's stomachs and make them run away. My stomach! The dry down is a little bit easier going than the opening here, but that opening can be just so overwhelming for people that it can make them just, like I said, run away pretty much right off the top. And it's a strong one, as I said a couple times. So not one of those ones you can ease yourself into, really. All right, obvious one. Guilty Absolute from Gucci. This one is, it's a little tough to wear for a lot of people. So repeating myself, it's another one that I really like the smell of. Ever since it came out, actually, really dug it. But it's one of those ones that when you smell it, even if you very much appreciate it, you know, it's just not gonna work for a lot of people. And there will be people who say, oh no, I do wear it in lots of situations, and I've gotten compliments on it, therefore everybody can wear it, but it doesn't really work that way, you know? Having the confidence to pull it off is half the battle. So very leathery this one. Very leathery, kind of a medicinal feel to it. People actually compared it to the smell of Band-Aids when it came out. I know, it sounds great.
Hey, here, Daddy needs a Band-Aid.
And this one flopped pretty hard. It flopped pretty hard. It got a lot of love, well, a decent amount of love from people who are more into fragrances. You know, not quite like Terre d'Hermes over here, but there's definitely a big group that hates this one, and then you've got a group over here that loves it as well. But it didn't do so hot. I had friends that worked at Macy's, a couple of other guys in the fragrance community, when this one came out, and they told me like that they took it off the shelf really not long after it came out. So I really like it, but if you are a beginner, you probably can find a lot of other ways to spend your money. All right, next up, Tom Ford Noir Extreme. And this one, interestingly enough, I have a friend who got that one. His wife gifted it to him, and he just hated it. And he's trying to get into fragrances, trying to, you know, figure out what he likes and everything, and and I've actually heard that a number of times, which to me is a little bit interesting because I would think this one is maybe a little easier than some of these others. But then, you know, I take a step back, and when I smell it, I think, oh, yeah, I mean, to be fair, it is, once again, quite different than most other things out there. So for somebody like me or a lot of you out there, you're gonna smell that and go, oh, heck yeah, that's gonna set me apart. That's got quality, uniqueness, you know, it's got a flair to it, it's got an attention-grabbing kind of feel to it, it's classy, it's sexy, all this stuff. Give it to me. But other people who are just getting started, who have only smelled like the most basic of basic things, you know, they're gonna smell that and just go, God, disgusting. Powdery, grandma-ish, don't like it. Oud for Greatness is next from Initio. This one quite strong. A little bit of a similarity to Baccarat Rouge 540. Some people will find a similarity between these two because of how the saffron comes across in each one of the fragrances. And it's a pretty good hype beast, Oud for Greatness. You've seen it cloned a bunch of times, so you can get this one like Baccarat Rouge 540, something similar to it, for really cheap. You know, 25 bucks or so, you could pick up a pretty good clone of this one. And while this is not the most difficult oud fragrance to get into, oud fragrances in general are kind of like vetiver fragrances for somebody who's just getting started, where they can be intimidating, overwhelming, and off-putting. And so with this one, you have the higher price point because it is a niche fragrance. You have a very strong fragrance here, so again, it's not one that you can just kind of ease your way into and get used to. When you spray it on, it's, you know, and then it is an oud fragrance, so some people are gonna be a little off-put by that. So this is another one like Baccarat Rouge 540 that I don't think is an insane fragrance as far as, you know, how difficult it is to pull off. Certainly more than BR 540 is difficult to pull off for people, but all things considered, you should definitely sample this one first. Voss Vintage up next. Voss Vintage, I think when you can get that at discounters on the cheap, it's an amazing buy. I think the quality, again, very good. It's a really rich fragrance. When you look at the note breakdown, there's just so much going on with this one. Nice spiciness. It's a grown-up fragrance. You know, it's a little bit mature, but it has just like the right balance of spicy, sweet, and warm going on here. So with this one, the problem is sort of similar to a couple of the others that we've talked about, where it just doesn't work super well, especially for younger guys who are just getting started. They smell this one, they think it smells too mature, too spicy, too much of like a holiday kind of spiciness to it, and then they're just kind of turned off from the whole thing. So it's one that I personally really enjoy. Also Burberry London, I think that one is fantastic. But for younger guys often getting started in fragrances, this is one where they will pick it up, think it's gonna be just a banger for fall and winter time, and then be disappointed. Last but not least, Black Afghano from Nasamato. Nasamato, one of those houses where if you're just getting started, you've maybe seen them talked about here, there, or somewhere else. And sometimes you can find these at discounters for a decent price. So you might think, well, pick one up. You know, it's 80 bucks, 90 bucks. I've seen them go for that. Why not? You can often find fragrances from this house for under 100 bucks at discounters. So I've picked up a couple, I think in the like 85, 90 range, and this one gets talked about a lot or has over the years. So you may think, oh, I'll pick that one up. But if you're looking for the safest from the house for a masculine fragrance, either get Pardon or Barra Onda. Those are probably gonna be the two to go for. This one, as the name probably would convey, just the color and the name here, very dark woody, incensey, and has a cannabis note to it as well. There is a Gucci fragrance called Intense Oud that's kind of similar to this one, but unfortunately, if you were thinking you could pick that one up on the cheap and have something similar to that, Intense Oud is actually pretty expensive. But yeah, just throwing that out there. So for a beginner, this is not gonna be safe, and a lot of the others from the house probably wouldn't be safe either. I just picked that one, but it could have been a number of them. So there we go, 15 fragrances, heavily hyped, that if you are just getting started, you should definitely sample first, if at all possible. Don't blind buy these, unless you don't really care and you like gambling. All right guys, that'll do it for me. Thank you for hanging with me. Stay safe out there. I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys later.